Hello students, welcome back. Let us take a look at the last exercise of your chapter coordinate geometry, which is exercise 3.3 on page 65. So the first question, in which quadrant or axis do each of the following points lie? Verify your answers by locating them on a Cartesian plane. So our points are here: -2, 4, 3, -1, -1, 0, 1, 2 and -3, -5. So first of all, I have drawn a Cartesian plane over here. Before plotting the points, first of all, since we have learned that the horizontal x-axis and the vertical y-axis divide our plane into 4 equal parts known as quadrants. So this is the first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant and fourth quadrant. Now the sign of the coordinates here in xy format would be plus plus, this would be minus plus, this would be minus minus, and here out we will have plus and minus. Now these plus and minus signs are according to the positive x-axis and the positive y-axis, and similarly negative y-axis and the negative x-axis. So now we have the first point -2, 4. So -2, 4 is negative x coordinate and positive y coordinate. Therefore -2, 4, where do I write it? I am just writing it in this space here. The first one, -2 and 4 lies in which quadrant? It lies in the second quadrant. The second one, we have 3 and -1. 3 and -1. So 3 and -1 is positive x coordinate and negative y coordinate, which is the fourth quadrant. So -3, 1 lies in the fourth quadrant. The third one, we have -1 and 0. So -1 and 0, if you notice that the y coordinate is 0, which means the point lies on the x-axis, right? So the x-axis is this, the negative side, so -1. So this point -1, 0 lies on the negative x-axis. And you have 1 and 2. So 1 and 2, both the coordinates are positive, which is why it will lie in the first quadrant. In quadrant number 1, and finally we have -3 and -5. -3 and -5, both the coordinates are negative, therefore it will lie in my third quadrant, right? Now let us go ahead and read the question further. Verify your answer by locating them on the Cartesian plane. So let us locate these points and confirm whether our whatever quadrants that we have found for these coordinates, whether they are actually right or wrong. So let's go ahead with -2 and 4. So -2 is here and 4 is here on the y-axis. So -2 on the x-axis and -4 on the. So -2 and 4 is lying on the third in the second quadrant. Hang on, -2 and 4. 4 is positive. So -2 and 4. So yes, it is lying in the second quadrant. Let's see for 3 and -1. So 3 and -1. 3 is positive and -1 negative here. So -3 and -1 is lying in the fourth quadrant. So fourth quadrant out here. How about -1 and 0? -1 and 0 is this. -1 and 0. So it's lying on the negative x-axis, right? Because since it's lying on the x-axis, the x coordinate has been given, which is negative. So on this side of the x-axis. Then you have 1 and 2, both are positive. So 1 here on the x-axis and 2 here on the y-axis. So this point lies on the first quadrant, which is what we've mentioned. And then finally -3 and -5. So I have -3 here and minus 5 here. So my point is going to be this one. So this is lying on my third quadrant. Let us mark these points. So we had minus 2 and 4 was here. Then we had 3 and minus 1, 3 and minus 1, here. Then we had minus 1 and 0, which is this point, minus 1 and 0. 1 comma 2, this is 1 comma 2, and finally minus 3 minus 5 is this point, right. So we have verified that these quadrants that we have mentioned are correct by plotting it into the Cartesian plane. Now let us go ahead and solve the second question, but I'll just erase what we have solved here. I'll use the same Cartesian system for plotting points of question number 2. So this is point 4 and 3. Okay, so we need to plot these points where x, y are the coordinates. So I'll say this is point A, this is point B, this is point C, this is point D, and this is point E. So what are the coordinates of point A? We have minus 2 and 8. Now minus 2 and 8 is negative x coordinate and positive y coordinate. Therefore it will lie on my second quadrant. So let's check for minus 2 on the x axis and 8 on the y axis. So it will be this point. So I'll call this A, minus 2 comma 8, right. Then I have minus 1 and 7, again negative and positive. So second quadrant, so minus 1 is here and 7 is here. So let us locate a point B. So this point out here is B, minus 1 comma 7. How about C? C has x coordinate 0, therefore the point will lie on the y axis. So the y coordinate is minus 1.25, therefore this point is going to lie on the negative side of the y axis. So minus 1.25, first of all it's going to lie between 1 and 2, and finally 1 and 1.5. So the point will be somewhere here, minus 1.25. So here is my point C, 0, comma minus 1.25. Then I have 1 and 3, both are positive, x and y coordinates are positive, therefore the point is going to lie on my first quadrant. So 1 is here and I have 3 here. So let us plot the point. So this is my point D, 1 comma 3. And finally I have point E, which is 3 and minus 1. Positive x coordinate, negative y coordinate will lie on my fourth quadrant. So let's locate the point 3 and minus 1. So 3 is here and minus 1 is here. Let me just erase this. I will mark it instead over here. This was 0 and minus 1.25. So now it becomes easier to locate. I will just write 3 on top over here. So 3 and, so this point is E, 3 comma minus 1. So you see we have located all the coordinates that have been asked in this table. Please take a look. So this ends up your exercise 3.3. We will now take a look at what has been covered in the entire chapter through our summary. So let's take a look at the summary. The first section is Cartesian plane and its components. So what exactly is a Cartesian plane? I hope you have checked all this. I am erasing this board so that I can explain you the summary in detail. So first of all, Cartesian plane is made up of two number lines. One is a vertical number line and one is the horizontal number line, and these two number lines intersect each other at this point, which is known as the origin. So this is also 0 for both your number lines, that is for the vertical number line and the horizontal number line. Now this horizontal number line is called as the x axis and this vertical number line is known as your y axis. And when you want to refer to both of them together, you are just going to call them the coordinate axis. So the spelling for a axis here, the plural would be AXES. Okay. Now since this is 0 for the horizontal and vertical number line, let's mark our points for these. Let's refer to the number lines as axes now. So this is x dash, this is y and this is y dash, right? Similarly over here and here. Right, so this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and it would end up infinitely, just keep extending infinitely, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and this is the negative side of your x axis. So minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, minus 5. Similarly, negative side of your y axis would be minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, minus 5, minus 6, minus 7, minus 8 and so on. Now these two perpendicular lines just don't intersect, but they also intersect at perpendicular angles. So this angle here is 90 degrees, this angle here is 90 degrees, this angle here is 90 degrees and this angle here is 90 degrees, because intersection could be of any form. It could be like this, it could be like this, right? But here it is at perpendicular angles. So each angle of the coordinate axis is 90 degrees. So we have taken a look at the axis and origin. Now any point that you would like to represent in your Cartesian plane, it would be represented like this. So suppose first of all it is in the form of x comma y, where x is called the x coordinate and y is known as the y coordinate, which is nothing but a representation of a point by its parameters. So the first parameter is that you are going to take your x, the point on your x axis, the distance from the x axis, and the other parameter would be distance from the y axis. Sorry, we'll take a look at x coordinate and y coordinate, but you just need to know that any point that you represent is called a coordinate point. So here my point is 3 and 3. This is the x coordinate and this is the y coordinate. So what is the x coordinate and y coordinate? X coordinate is nothing but the perpendicular distance from your y axis. So this is the perpendicular distance from your y axis, which is this, right? And y coordinate is the perpendicular distance from your x axis, which is this, which is also 3 out here, right? So this is the representation of coordinates using their parameters. So your coordinates are represented using two parameters belonging to the x axis and to the y axis. The x coordinate is also known as the abscissa and the y coordinate is also known as the ordinate. We just saw the terms x coordinate and y coordinate, which are nothing but the distance, perpendicular distance from the y axis and x axis respectively. Now coordinates of the points lying on the axis. First of all, we saw for coordinates lying anywhere on these planes, right? But what if you have a point that is lying on the x axis? So coordinates of points lying on x axis, the y coordinate would be 0, and for coordinates of points lying on the y axis, the x coordinate would be 0. Let us take a look how. So I marked a point over here. If you see, the perpendicular distance from the y axis is 5, right? So the x coordinate is what? 5. But how about the y coordinate? The y coordinate is ending here itself, therefore it is 0. So for any point lying on the x coordinate, on the x axis, the y coordinate is 0. Similarly, if I take a point, let's say minus 4 out here, the x coordinate is nothing because it's on the axis, right? So the x coordinate is 0 and the y coordinate is perpendicular distance from the x axis, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, but this is on the negative side, so this is minus 4. Correct? Now the coordinates of the origin are always 0, 0. So this origin over here is 0, 0, because here if you notice the x and y coordinates are intersecting. So, and also this point is 0. So, we represent, since we have to represent your coordinates in terms of two parameters, which is why we say 0, 0. Now, quadrants and sign of coordinates for the quadrants. So, first of all, what is quadrants? If you see that these axes are dividing your plane, suppose this board was your plane paper, okay, so your paper is, it's dividing your paper into 4 parts, right? So, each of this part is known as quadrant. This we go about marking the quadrants in anti-clockwise direction. So this is first quadrant, this is second quadrant, this is third quadrant, and this is the fourth quadrant. Now signs of your x and y coordinates depend upon whether in which quadrant they lie. Here if you see, the x and y coordinates both are positive, so the sign of your coordinate here would be plus and plus. For example, we have this point 3, 3. See, both of them are positive. Similarly, here you have the x coordinate negative and the y coordinate positive. So, the sign of your coordinates here would be negative and positive. Now, the third quadrant, both the coordinates are going to be negative. Why? Because you have your x coordinate, x axis negative and the y axis negative. So, here we have minus and minus, and finally in the fourth quadrant we have positive x axis, so positive x coordinate, and negative y axis, so negative y coordinate, right? Now a very important point, if x is not equal to y, then x comma y is not equal to y comma x. Let us take for example, if I take I'll erase this section. Now if x is not equal to y, so I'll take my x as 3 and y is equal to 4. So obviously x here is not equal to y. Looking at this, x is 3 and y is 4, so obviously they both are not equal. Now I'll take my point xy, the coordinate xy will be what? 3, 4, and my coordinate yx would be 4, 3. Now do not get confused that I am plotting my x here first and y as y first here on the y axis. This, for simplicity, I'll name these points. I'll call this A and I'll call this B, right? So let me erase this section. So A is 3, 4. I have 3 here and 4 here. So this is A, and 4B is 4, 3. So 4 is here and 3 is here. So obviously you see that A is not equal to B, which is why x comma y is not equal to y comma x. Simple. Now the inverse of this, if x y is equal to yx, so I'll say xy is equal to yx. So this will also be 3, 4. Since I've taken my xy as 3, 4, I'll take my b, the coordinate b also as 3, 4. If these two are equal, then x is equal to y, right? So if you notice this point A and B, they are going to be the same point, that is 3, 4, right? This is A equal to B. Therefore, since these two are equal, xy is equal to yx implies A is equal to B, right? Therefore, your x is equal to y. Thus, we have proved our point. This was from the previous exercise, so it's not a part of the summary. Since I did not have space for the last exercise, we solved it. Okay, so with this we wind up our chapter coordinate geometry. We'll take a look at the exercise for the chapter 4 in the next class. Thank you.
Hope this video increased your knowledge. For more such videos and a completely free educational content, log on to www.epathshala.org or visit our ePathshala YouTube channel. We have each and every question solved for maths, physics, chemistry and biology. So subscribe our channel, share with your friends, like our Facebook page and follow our Twitter handle for regular updates and important educational tips, and also win ePathshala goodies. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe this channel and enjoy the freedom of education.